Laura Bennett believed she knew what danger looked like until the night it arrived, disguised as an accident. Her patrol car struck, trapped, engulfed in flames on a frozen mountain road. They meant for the fire to erase her, for winter to finish what betrayal began. And for a moment, the storm agreed. But fate had not turned away. Somewhere beyond the falling snow, a broken Navy SEAL battling his own demons and a loyal K-9 who refused to stay silent were already moving. Through fear, through fire, toward a truth that would not burn. Before we begin, if this story touches your heart, comment Amen, and please subscribe for more stories of courage, faith, and quiet miracles. Snow fell thick and soundless over the Montana mountains, smothering the road, the trees, and every trace of color until the world narrowed to white, wind, and distance. Laura Bennett drove alone, hands steady on the wheel, eyes trained on the thin ribbon of asphalt cutting through the pass. At 34, she carried herself with the quiet economy of someone who had learned not to waste motion. She was tall, slightly above average, lean without fragility, her strength earned through long nights, weight training, and years of wearing a badge that never truly came off. Her auburn hair was pulled into a low, practical bun at the nape of her neck, already dusted with melting snow where it brushed the collar of her winter uniform. Freckles faintly crossed the bridge of her nose, softened by pale skin that rarely saw sunlight this time of year. Laura's face was angular, cheekbones sharp, jaw set with a calm that unsettled suspects and reassured victims. Around the station, people said she didn't talk much unless it mattered. When she did speak, her voice was low, measured, and impossible to ignore. She had learned that tone early in life, after her father died in a highway accident ruled unavoidable, a verdict she had never fully believed. Loss had shaped her into someone who listened harder than others and trusted more slowly. The patrol car hummed beneath her, heater working overtime against the cold. The dashboard clock read 11:58 p.m. The radio crackled once, then fell silent again. Laura didn't bother adjusting it. Storms like this swallowed signals whole. Her right hand drifted briefly to the inside pocket of her heavy coat. The USB drive rested there, small and unassuming, its hard edges pressing reassuringly against her ribs. She had checked it twice already tonight, not out of fear, but habit. Inside it were transaction logs, altered reports, and audio files copied from a secured server. Evidence tying a regional infrastructure project to kickbacks, shell companies, and at least 2 deaths disguised as weather-related accidents. Names she recognized, men she had shared coffee with. That knowledge sat heavy in her chest, not like panic, but like gravity. Laura had learned long ago that fear made people sloppy, calm kept them alive. The road curved sharply ahead, climbing toward the highest point of the pass. Pines crowded close on both sides, their branches bowed under snow, creating a tunnel of shadow and white. Laura slowed, tires crunching softly, breath fogging the windshield with each controlled exhale. She thought briefly of the station lights waiting on the other side of the mountain, the warmth, the locked doors. Almost there. The impact came without warning. A violent jolt slammed the left side of the car, metal shrieking as the world lurched sideways. Laura's head snapped forward, the seatbelt biting hard into her shoulder. The steering wheel tore from her grip as the tires lost purchase on the ice. Training took over before fear could surface. Brake. counter-steer. Too late. The patrol car skidded, spun, and smashed through the guardrail in a burst of splintered wood and sparks. Gravity seized the vehicle, dragging it down the embankment in a sickening slide. Laura tasted blood where her teeth cut her lip. The car slammed into a stand of trees and stopped with a bone-shaking crunch. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then fire bloomed. Flames erupted from beneath the hood, orange and violent against the snow, heat rushing toward the cabin with terrifying speed. Smoke poured through the vents, thick and choking. Laura coughed, fingers scrambling for the door handle. It wouldn't move. The frame had warped on impact. Her mind raced, sharp and focused even as pain flared along her ribs and down her left leg. She kicked at the door once, twice. Nothing. The fire spread, licking along the dashboard, devouring plastic and wire. The smell of burning insulation filled her lungs. Someone had hit her. The thought arrived fully formed, cold and undeniable. This wasn't black ice. This wasn't a deer. The angle was wrong. The force too precise. A controlled strike. The realization brought no shock, only a deep, aching disappointment. Laura had known this moment might come. She had just hoped it wouldn't be tonight. She reached for the radio again, though she already knew it was useless. Static answered her, thin and mocking. The windshield cracked as heat stressed the glass, spiderwebs racing outward. Flames curled closer, relentless. Laura's thoughts scattered, then narrowed. Evidence. The USB. Her fingers shook for the first time as she pressed her hand to her coat, confirming it was still there. If she didn't make it out, someone else had to find it. Someone had to finish what she started. The idea steadied her, even as smoke blurred her vision. Her breaths grew shallow. Each inhale burned. Darkness crept in at the edges, thick and heavy, like sleep trying to claim her. Then, faintly, through the roar of fire and the howl of wind, came a sound that didn't belong. A bark, low, sharp, insistent. Laura's eyes fluttered open. She strained to listen, heart pounding weakly. The sound came again, closer this time, cutting through the storm with purpose. Not a wild animal, not imagination. A dog. Hope flared, fragile and dangerous. She tried to shout, to pound on the window, but her strength was draining fast. The world tilted, colors bleeding together into orange and white. Her last clear thought was simple, almost calm. Someone was out there. The flames surged, smoke thickened, and Laura Bennett slipped into darkness as the barking grew louder in the snow. Michael Hayes had learned to live with silence because noise was dangerous. The cabin sat deep in the Montana mountains, a single-story structure of dark timber and stone pressed into the slope like it was trying to hide from the wind. Snow drifted against its walls in uneven ridges. No neighbors, no lights for miles. That was intentional. At 36, Michael preferred places where memories had room to breathe without cornering him. He was tall, broad-shouldered, built dense rather than bulky. The kind of man whose strength showed most when he wasn't moving. Years in the Navy SEALs had carved sharp lines into his face-high cheekbones, a straight, slightly crooked nose that had been broken once and poorly reset in a desert clinic, and a jaw that stayed clenched even when he slept. His beard was dark and kept short out of habit, threaded with premature gray he pretended not to notice. His eyes, a washed-out steel blue, carried a permanent distance, as if part of him was always scanning for threats no one else could see. The war had ended for him on paper 18 months ago. In his body, it never really had. That night, the cold gnawed deeper than usual. Michael pulled his jacket tighter as he stepped outside, breath fogging instantly. At his side moved Rex. Rex was a 5-year-old German shepherd, black and tan, with a thick winter coat and a scar just above his left shoulder where shrapnel had kissed too close during a patrol overseas. His ears stood tall and alert, though the tip of the right one bent slightly forward, giving him a perpetually questioning look. Rex had once worked K-9 detection with military units before an explosion ended his service. Michael had taken him in without paperwork or ceremony. 2 veterans, quietly retired. Rex usually walked with disciplined patience, matching Michael's pace step for step. Tonight, he stopped abruptly. The dog's body went rigid, tail low, nose lifting into the wind. A soft growl vibrated in his chest. Not aggressive, but urgent. "What is it?" Michael asked, voice calm by reflex. Rex didn't look at him. The leash snapped taut as the dog surged forward, pulling hard enough to force Michael into motion. The suddenness sent a spike of adrenaline through his chest, sharp and unwelcome. His hand tightened instinctively, knuckles whitening. Then Michael saw it. An unnatural orange glow flickered through the trees, staining the falling snow with color. Fire. Too big for a campfire. Too violent. The smell reached him next, burning rubber, fuel, hot metal. Michael's heartbeat thundered in his ears. For a split second, the mountains vanished, replaced by sand, smoke, and screaming radios. His breath hitched, his foot faltered. Rex barked once short, commanding. That sound anchored him. Michael forced air into his lungs, counting the way therapists had taught him. In through the nose, out through the mouth. He followed Rex downhill, boots sliding as the terrain steepened. The wreck came into view in pieces. A flash of flame, twisted metal, a patrol car, half crushed against trees, fire roaring from the engine block. Someone was inside. Michael saw her through the shattered side window, a woman slumped in the driver's seat, hair matted with blood and snow, uniform collar darkened by smoke. She wasn't moving. "No," he muttered, the word torn from him. Rex lunged toward the car, barking repeatedly now, frantic but focused. Michael dropped to his knees beside the door, heat blasting his face. The handle wouldn't budge. Flames licked closer, greedy and fast. Fire. His vision tunneled. His hands shook. For an instant, he was back in a burning vehicle overseas, screams pounding against his skull, the smell of flesh and fuel indistinguishable. "Move," he told himself. "You know how to do this." Michael grabbed a rock and smashed it into the window. Glass exploded outward. He yanked off his jacket, wrapped it around his arm, and reached inside. The woman was limp, her body frighteningly light as he hauled her toward him. Her skin was pale beneath the soot, lips tinged blue. The engine popped violently. Michael didn't hesitate. He dragged her clear, falling backward into the snow as a blast of heat surged behind them. A second later, the fuel tank ignited with a deafening crack, flames shooting skyward. Rex pressed close, whining softly as he sniffed the woman's face, then her hands, then looked up at Michael as if demanding instruction. Michael rolled the woman onto her side, checking her airway the way muscle memory dictated. She coughed weakly, smoke-stained breath rasping out of her chest. Alive. Relief hit him so hard it nearly dropped him. Only then did he see the badge on her uniform. Police. The name stitched above the pocket read, Laura Bennett. This wasn't some lost driver. This was a cop. Michael's jaw tightened. Accidents didn't burn like that. Not that fast. Not that clean. Sirens were a distant hope in weather like this. He shrugged his jacket over Laura's shoulders, ignoring the tremor in his own hands. Rex lay down beside her immediately, pressing his warm body against her side, anchoring her in the snow. Michael scanned the dark tree line, senses flaring despite the cold. He felt it then, the unmistakable certainty that the fire wasn't the most dangerous thing on this mountain. Someone had wanted her dead, and somehow, against all odds, Rex had dragged him straight into the middle of it. Laura Bennett woke to the steady beep of a heart monitor and the antiseptic smell of a rural hospital that tried too hard to feel calm. The ceiling above her was low and stained with faint watermarks, the kind that never quite disappeared no matter how often they were repainted. Her body registered pain in layers, first the dull ache in her ribs, then the sharp burn in her shoulder, then the heavy stiffness in her left leg wrapped in a brace. She breathed carefully, testing herself, cataloging damage the way training demanded. Alive, she thought, against the odds. A movement at the edge of the room pulled her focus. A man sat in a chair near the window, elbows resting on his knees, head slightly bowed as if listening to something only he could hear. Michael Hayes looked different in daylight. Without firelight and snow, his age showed more clearly. Mid-30s, maybe older, when exhaustion weighed him down. His face was angular, weathered, with faint scars along his knuckles, and one thin white line near his hairline that suggested shrapnel rather than accident. His beard was trimmed short but uneven, as if he'd done it himself with little care. When he noticed her stirring, he lifted his head slowly, blue-gray eyes sharpening with alertness. "You're awake," he said quietly. Laura swallowed. Her throat felt raw. "Where?" "County Hospital," Michael replied. 20 miles down the mountain. Storm eased enough for transport." She shifted slightly and winced. Memory rushed back in fragments fire, heat, smoke, barking. "The car," she murmured. "The USB." Michael didn't answer immediately. He stood, tall and solid, moving with the caution of someone who expected pain to follow sudden motion. He reached into the pocket of his jacket and placed a small black USB drive on the bedside table. "I found it under the seat when I pulled you out," he said. "I didn't know what it was. Just knew it mattered." Laura's chest tightened, not with fear, but relief edged with something sharper. Control. She still had a chance. "You did the right thing," she said, studying him carefully. "Most people wouldn't." Michael's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "Most people didn't spend years learning what happens when you ignore your gut." Before she could respond, the door opened softly. Nurse Emily Ross stepped inside, clipboard tucked against her chest. She was in her late 20s, slim, with sandy blonde hair braided tightly down her back and skin pale from too many night shifts. Her eyes were alert but kind, the kind that noticed details without lingering. "She's been stable," Emily said to Michael, then turned to Laura. You gave us a scare, Officer Bennett. Laura nodded faintly. Sorry about that. Emily's lips curved. Don't apologize for surviving. She checked the IV, the monitors, then glanced briefly at Michael and the USB before choosing not to comment. Professional discretion. Laura clocked it immediately. When the nurse left, silence filled the room again, heavier now. Laura exhaled slowly. The crash wasn't an accident. Michael leaned back against the wall, arms crossed loosely, eyes on the floor. I figured. She told him everything. About the winter infrastructure contracts, snow removal, road maintenance, emergency housing. About inflated budgets, shell companies, and payments routed through charitable foundations that looked clean on paper. About 2 men who had died the previous winter in weather-related incidents after asking the wrong questions. About reports altered after filing and supervisors who insisted she let it go. Michael listened without interrupting. His stillness was absolute, but Laura noticed the tension in his jaw, the way his fingers flexed when she mentioned the deaths. They thought fire would erase it, she finished. Send a message. Make me disappear. Michael nodded once. Fire destroys evidence people can see, not the kind that sticks. Rex chose that moment to lift his head from where he lay beside Laura's bed. The German Shepherd's presence had been approved reluctantly by hospital staff, mostly because he refused to move and because Michael refused to leave without him. Rex rested his chin on the mattress, amber eyes tracking Laura's face with quiet intensity. His coat was clean now, brushed but still thick and scarred. When Laura shifted, he rose slightly, pressing closer, warmth solid and grounding. He hasn't left your side, Michael said, except to eat. Laura studied the dog, then met Michael's eyes. He knew, didn't he? Michael hesitated. Rex notices things most people don't. Smells fear, stress. He's trained. She nodded. So am I. The words hung between them, shared and understood. Michael turned toward the window, where snow drifted lazily from a pale sky. I was going to walk away, he admitted, after I got you here. Why didn't you? His reflection stared back at him in the glass. Because I've done that before. He didn't elaborate, but Laura didn't need him to. She recognized the weight in his voice, the sound of someone haunted by a choice they could never undo. They won't stop, she said softly. Not if they think the evidence is still out there. Michael turned back to her then, expression hardening into something purposeful. Then they're making the same mistake twice. Outside the room, footsteps echoed down the hall. Somewhere in the building, a phone rang. Life continued, oblivious. Rex settled back down, tail thumping once against the bed frame, a quiet promise. Laura closed her eyes, exhaustion finally claiming its due, but not before one clear thought anchored itself in her mind. The truth hadn't burned. Snow erased evidence faster than people ever could. It fell steadily over the outskirts of the county, softening tire tracks, swallowing footprints, and turning every road into a clean slate. Laura Bennett sat in the passenger seat of Michael's aging pickup, watching the white blur slide past the window while her mind worked in sharp, restless loops. She was officially on medical leave. Unofficially, she was still a cop. Laura looked thinner now than she had before the crash. The bruising along her jaw had faded to a dull yellow, but the stiffness in her movements betrayed cracked ribs that hadn't finished healing. Her auburn hair hung loose for once, falling to her shoulders in uneven waves. The hospital smell had finally left her clothes, replaced by cold air and pine. Michael drove in silence. His posture was relaxed, almost casual. But Laura noticed the details, the way his eyes checked reflections, how his hands adjusted on the wheel whenever another vehicle appeared, how he never fully leaned back into the seat. Hypervigilance wasn't something he chose. It was something that lived with him now. Rex lay in the back, head lifted between the seats, amber eyes alert. The German Shepherd had been groomed since the rescue, but his scars were still visible beneath the thick fur, pale lines against dark muscle. Every so often, his ears twitched, reacting to sounds no one else noticed. They had spent the day chasing absences. Deleted traffic camera footage along the mountain pass. Maintenance logs quietly altered. A winter contractor listed on 3 different infrastructure bids under 3 different company names. And one name, Ethan Cole, that surfaced briefly, then vanished from official records as if it had never existed. Laura stared at the notebook in her lap, pages filled with tight handwriting. "He's not just a middleman," she said. "Someone's protecting him." Michael didn't answer right away. The truck slowed as they approached an abandoned industrial zone at the edge of town, old storage facilities left behind when the rail line shut down years ago. "I don't like this place," he said finally. Neither did she. The warehouses squatted low and wide, their metal skins rusted, roofs sagging under snow. No lights, no signs of recent use. And yet Laura felt the familiar prickle at the back of her neck, the sensation of being watched. Rex growled softly. Michael parked 100 yards out, engine off. The silence pressed in, broken only by wind dragging snow across steel. "This was the address tied to Cole's last permit," Laura said. "Temporary storage, filed and closed in 48 hours. Michael exhaled through his nose. "That's not storage. That's a meeting." They moved carefully, boots crunching despite their efforts. Laura's hand rested near the concealed pistol Michael had insisted she carry. She hated needing it. She hated more that he was right. Inside the warehouse, the air was colder, sharper. Moonlight spilled through broken skylights, illuminating rows of empty shelving and scattered pallets. Laura took a few steps in, then stopped. Something was wrong. Michael felt it too. His shoulders tightened. His breathing shifted shorter, faster. Then the light snapped on. Blinding white flooded the space. Laura flinched, instinctively turning away. A metallic clang echoed as a door slammed shut behind them. "Down!" Michael shouted. The sound of boots hit concrete. Voices men, controlled, close. Michael moved without thinking, grabbing Laura's arm and pulling her behind a stack of crates as a shot rang out, the crack sharp and deafening. Rex barked furiously, then lunged, teeth flashing as he drove one attacker back long enough to break the line of sight. Michael's heart hammered. The warehouse blurred, replaced by another structure, another ambush. Sweat slicked his palms despite the cold. "Get out! Get out! Get out!" Laura saw it in his face, the fracture forming. "Michael!" she snapped, grounding her voice. "Look at me." For a split second, he didn't hear her. Then Rex whined sharply, pressing against Michael's leg, solid and real. The contact anchored him. Michael sucked in air, forced his vision to clear. "Exit," he muttered. "Left wall. Now." They moved together, Laura firing once to force space, Michael guiding her with a firm hand at her back. Rex stayed between them and the attackers, snapping and feinting. buying seconds that felt like hours. They burst through a side door into the snow, lungs burning. Michael slammed it shut, and they ran, stumbling through drifts until the dark swallowed the building behind them. They didn't stop until the truck was in sight. Inside the cab, Laura shook, adrenaline crashing hard. Michael's hands trembled as he started the engine, jaw clenched so tight it hurt. "They wanted us there," Laura said, breath unsteady. "That wasn't defense. That was a message." Michael nodded once. "They know how you think." "And how you move," she added. Rex climbed forward, placing his paws on the console, tongue lolling as he panted. He licked Laura's cheek once, then Michael's wrist, grounding both of them in the moment. Laura leaned back, staring at the warehouse now shrinking in the rearview mirror. Her mind replayed the precision of the trap, the resources behind it. "This goes higher than contracts," she said quietly, "higher than local offices." Michael didn't argue. Snow began falling harder, erasing their tracks almost instantly. But Laura understood something now with absolute clarity. Whoever was behind this wasn't afraid of killing again. The explosion wasn't meant to kill anyone. That was the cruelest part. It came in the early hours before dawn, a sharp, contained blast that tore through the silence outside Michael's cabin and rattled the windows hard enough to shake frost from the glass. The sound wasn't loud by military standards. No fireball, no collapsing walls. But it was precise. Too precise. Michael was on his feet before he was awake. Heart slamming against his ribs, lungs refusing to draw air. The room vanished, replaced by a desert road and a vehicle split open like a wound. His hands shook violently as he reached for a weapon that wasn't there. Rex barked once, sharp and commanding, then pressed his full weight into Michael's legs, grounding him. The German shepherd's coat bristled, breath steaming as he scanned the cabin, every instinct on high alert. Laura burst from the back room, hair loose, eyes wide. "Michael!" He didn't hear her at first. His gaze was unfocused, jaw locked so tight a muscle twitched along his cheek. Sweat beaded at his hairline despite the cold. He was shaking now, visibly, shoulders caving inward as if bracing for another blast. Laura crossed the room slowly, deliberately, the way she approached victims on the edge of panic. "Michael," she said again, firmer, "you're here. Look at me." His eyes flicked toward her, then away. "I told them not to park there," he whispered, voice breaking. "I told them." Laura reached out, gripping his wrist. His pulse hammered beneath her fingers. "That's not now. That's not here." Rex whined softly and nudged Michael's thigh, tail stiff, eyes locked on his handler's face. The moment stretched, fragile as ice. Michael sucked in a breath that tore through his chest, then another. The cabin came back into focus, the wooden walls, the small table, Laura's face inches from his, steady and unafraid. "I'm sorry," he muttered, shame flooding in fast and hard. "Don't," Laura said quietly. "Don't apologize for surviving." Outside Biel, the echo of the blast faded into the mountains, leaving behind only wind and falling snow. Michael forced himself to stand straight, running a hand through his hair with a rough laugh that didn't quite land. "That was a warning," he said. "They wanted to see how close they could get." Laura nodded. "They're trying to break you." "And scare you off," he added. She met his gaze. "It won't work." They spent the morning assessing damage. The blast had taken out an old generator shack half a mile from the cabin, unused, but close enough to be unmistakable. No tracks remained. Snow had swallowed them whole. Back inside, Laura laid out the USB drive and her notes on the table. Her hands were steady now. "We don't have enough to go public," she said. "Not yet, but we have something better." Michael leaned against the counter, arms crossed, expression wary. "A trap." "A controlled one," Laura corrected. "They think I'm scared. They think you're unstable. Let's use that." She explained the plan slowly, carefully. A partial data leak, just enough truth to bait a response. A proposed exchange through an intermediary, someone with loose loyalties and a reputation for discretion. Michael listened, jaw tight. "You're asking them to show their hand?" "Yes," Laura said, "because they can't resist fixing what they think they still control." There was a long pause. "What if they shoot first?" Michael asked. Laura didn't look away. "They already did." That night, they drove toward the drop point, an open stretch of snow-covered service road near the old quarry. The sky was heavy with clouds, the kind that swallowed sound. Rex rode in the back seat, alert and silent. The plan unfolded smoothly at first. A black SUV appeared exactly where Laura predicted, headlights cutting through the dark. A single figure stepped out, tall and broad, face hidden beneath a hood. Michael watched from behind cover, breath shallow, every sense screaming. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from memory clawing its way back. The man raised one hand. Then everything went wrong. The first shot cracked the night open. Michael didn't remember moving, only the feel of cold ground beneath him, the recoil in his hands, the bark of Rex launching forward. Laura ducked, firing once, twice, forcing space as chaos erupted around them. Shouts echoed, tires spun, snow sprayed, Rex snarled, teeth flashing as he drove the shooter back just long enough for Michael to pull Laura clear. Another shot tore through the air, close enough to burn. Then sirens distant, but real. The SUV peeled away, vanishing into the dark. Silence rushed back in, broken only by Laura's ragged breathing and Rex's low growl. Michael stared at his hands, shocked to find them steady. Laura looked at him, something fierce and proud burning behind her exhaustion. "You stayed." He nodded once, swallowing hard. "So did you." Snow fell heavier now, covering the bloodless ground. They knew one thing with absolute certainty. The game was no longer hidden. Dawn arrived without ceremony. A thin gray light bleeding slowly into the mountains, as if the night itself were reluctant to let go. Laura Bennett stood at the edge of the quarry overlook, breath shallow, ribs aching beneath her coat. The snow had stopped sometime before morning, leaving the world unnaturally still. Below them, the frozen service road curved like a scar through the valley. It was where the final exchange had been scheduled. It was where this would end. Michael Hayes crouched several yards behind her, posture low, controlled. In the cold light, the lines in his face looked deeper etched by years of pressure and restraint rather than age. His beard was frosted with ice, his eyes sharp, focused, present. For the first time since Laura had met him, there was no flicker of retreat in his gaze. Rex stood between them. The German shepherd was alert, muscles coiled beneath his thick coat, nose working the air with quiet intensity. At 5 years old, Rex moved with the confidence of experience rather than speed, every step deliberate. His ears angled forward, tail low, body aligned, not with Michael or Laura, but with the tree line beyond the road. "That's it," Michael murmured. "He's here." Laura followed Rex's line of sight. At first, she saw nothing but snow and shadow. Then, a disturbance. A shape too still to be natural. Rex growled. The sound was low, controlled, unmistakable. He took 2 careful steps forward, then stopped, head tilted slightly, as if confirming what he already knew. "Left ridge," Laura whispered. "One shooter." Michael nodded once. No hesitation, no panic. The man revealed himself a second later, rifle barrel glinting faintly as he shifted position. He was tall, broad, wrapped in winter tactical gear. His face was obscured, but his stance spoke of training. This wasn't a hired thug. Rex lunged. The movement was explosive and precise. The shooter fired once wide. Rex hit him low, knocking him off balance long enough for Michael to close the distance. The impact was brutal and efficient. Michael disarmed the man with practiced ease, forcing him face first into the snow. The fight went out of him fast. Laura approached slowly, weapon trained, pulse pounding. As she stepped closer, recognition hit like a cold slap. "Ethan Cole," she said. The man looked up then, mid-40s, clean cut beneath the beard, sharp features softened by privilege rather than hardship. His eyes were calm, too calm for someone pinned to frozen ground. "You should have stayed burned," Ethan replied evenly. Michael tightened his grip. Within minutes, the sound of engines broke the silence. 2 unmarked vehicles crested the ridge, lights flashing red and blue through the snow haze. Federal agents spilled out, weapons raised, movements crisp and coordinated. Agent Marianne Keller stepped forward first. She was in her early 50s, tall and spare, silver hair pulled into a severe knot beneath her knit cap. Her face bore the kind of composure earned through decades of stepping into disasters without blinking. When her eyes met Laura's, there was no surprise, only confirmation. "Officer Bennett," Keller said, "you did your job." Ethan Cole was hauled to his feet, cuffs snapping closed around his wrists. He didn't resist. He didn't need to. The truth unraveled quickly after that. Cole wasn't just a contractor liaison. He was the operational arm of a state-level official who had turned winter infrastructure into a laundering machine, contracts inflated, corners cut, deaths erased under snow and fire. Anyone who threatened exposure was removed quietly. Laura's crash hadn't been the first. It was meant to be the last. By noon, arrests rippled outward like cracks in ice. Offices were sealed, accounts frozen. Names Laura had circled for months were finally spoken aloud in the open. Her badge was returned to her hands that evening. Michael watched from the edge of the room as Keller briefed her team. Rex lay at his feet, head resting against his boot, eyes half-lidded but alert. The dog's flank rose and fell steadily, grounded and real. "You could walk away now," Keller said to Laura when the room cleared. "No one would blame you." Laura shook her head. "I already tried that once." Outside, the mountains softened under the first hints of thaw. Snowmelt traced dark veins through white slopes. Spring hadn't arrived, but winter was loosening its grip. Michael packed his gear slowly that night, movements unhurried. The compulsion to run to disappear back into isolation never came. Instead, there was a quiet certainty settling into his chest. "I'm staying," he said simply. Laura looked at him, not surprised. "Me too." They stood together on the porch as Rex bounded into the yard, rolling once in the snow before springing back to his feet, tail wagging hard enough to shake his whole body. They were not heroes. They were survivors. And for the first time since the fire, since the blast, since the long, cold months that had nearly swallowed them whole, the future didn't feel like something to endure. It felt like something to step into. Sometimes miracles don't come as thunder from the sky or voices carried by angels. Sometimes they arrive quietly, through a loyal dog that refuses to leave, through a stranger who chooses courage over comfort, through a moment when God places the right souls on the same frozen road. This story reminds us that even when betrayal cuts deep, when darkness feels planned and unavoidable, God is still working beneath the surface. Fires may destroy what we see, but truth and faith do not burn. They wait and they rise. In our daily lives, the storms may look different. Fear, loss, loneliness, exhaustion. But the promise remains the same. You are never truly alone. Help often comes in forms we don't expect, exactly when we need it most. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs hope today. Leave a comment and tell us where you're watching from. Subscribe to the channel for more stories of courage, faith, and second chances. May God bless you, protect those you love, and guide you safely through every storm. Amen.